well, I feel exactly the way you do. And we should feel this way. And once we're done feeling this way, we dust ourselves off. We put on the political and legal brass knuckles. And we never say, uncle. Not now, not ever. There's been enough talk on TV and radio to make it abundantly clear that we had a crooked judge, a crooked prosecutor, and an overwhelmingly liberal Democrat jury pool. This case should have been dismissed, at least summary judgment. And once that door was open, we knew it would be difficult, didn't we? The judge was handpicked. He's not even a full-fledged permanent judge. He's an acting judge. And this judge has been picked for every Trump-related case in New York City. Every single one. Trump Organization, Bannon, Trump himself. That's not by accident. This judge should have recused himself, but he didn't. We knew that was a problem. He should have moved the venue to a more balanced community when selecting the jury pool, but he wouldn't. We knew that was a problem. He ruled repeatedly for the prosecution and against the defense on material issues. We knew that was a problem. He showed anger toward the defense counsel when they sought to defend their witness and raise substantive issues, and he let the prosecution ramble on and on and on. We knew that was a problem. The jury instructions could have been written by any Marxist, any hanging judge. He gave this jury 100 different ways to convict the former president, and he also withheld critical testimony and information. He interrupted Robert Costello, the key witness, in challenging Cohen. He prevented Brad Smith, one of the nation's experts on the federal election law, from testifying. He allowed in collateral evidence, as we revealed here, that is, evidence that shows, quote-unquote, a pattern, but is not probative. In fact, it is destructive of due process. When Trump says he's an innocent man, this was rigged, he's correct. You really don't need me or any lawyers to tell you how corrupt this is. But in the end, we need to rally to the cause. Does this not underscore the point that we must win this election? Does this not underscore the point that we must put people in positions of power who love the country, who will follow the rule of law, the Constitution, and our traditions? Does this not underscore the point? What happens if we don't win the next election? This is an election between good and evil, between right and wrong, between justice and injustice. Democrats are giddy with joy. Their goal is to imprison Donald Trump. They've interfered with the election process. They form shopped. They found the city. They found the prosecutor. They found the judge. And they got their jury. Now, this will have consequences enormous, grave consequences. First of all, it will embolden more of these Democrat judges, both in Fulton County, Washington, D.C., Chutkan. They're going to feel righteous. They're going to feel that they have to stand between the country and Hitler. They're going to feel that they have an obligation as a judge to deliver a Biden victory. And in order to deliver a Biden victory, you must twist the law. You must use your power as a judge to pave the way for the prosecutors. You don't charge a former president who's running for president with cockamamie, fictionalized crimes. We talked about that many, many times, didn't we? So what does Trump do? Well, I have a view. It's a little complicated. And it would involve not just the Bush versus Gore decision, but how do you get a case to the Supreme Court from a state trial court? It's not normal. It's not normal. I've been looking at some research done, for instance, at the Yale Law Review, federal court review by extraordinary writ. They write, to invoke common law writs, that is, not statutory-based writs, but common law-based writs. That is, really, matters of equity, I suppose. As instruments of review, a litigant must show that ordinary channels of appeal offer them no adequate remedy. The appeal may be non-existent. The lower court action may have obstructed it where it is available. Or thirdly, where appeal is available and unobstructed, the lower court's order may be abnormally detrimental to one party. That would seem to fit this case, would it, Mr. Producer? Because it might take 3 months, they say, to get a sentence. But Trump can appeal in 30 days. In my view, I don't know the New York appellate process, but I'm sure there is an emergency process. He should do that. And if the court doesn't rule, and he seeks emergency ruling from the highest court in New York, and they don't rule, then he's got a final determination, or it's final enough. You can certainly make a strong or colorable argument to try and get to the Supreme Court. That said, what's extraordinary here is we're in the middle of a general election, and the issues raised are jurisdictional issues at the heart of this. How does a state court and a state prosecutor use a federal law, a federal election law, not defined, to affect a federal presidential election? And you need to keep something in mind. The issue is we the people. It's our election. We're the voters. It's our election. We're the voters. So this is really an attack on us. Donald Trump for 6 weeks was unable to campaign. He was unable to speak to us directly because of this, not only being stuck in court, but this horrendous gag order. That was intentional. Unable to do rallies on Mondays and Tuesdays and Thursdays and Fridays, and also mostly Wednesdays because he had to get back to court. Substantial redirection of resources to legal expenses away from campaign ads and other campaign activities. In other words, he is and has been unable to run a routine, normal presidential campaign. First time in American history. Why? Because of this lawfare. because of this lawfare. So I mentioned that to you. I've talked about Bush versus Gore because I believe substantively that's important, the Equal Protection Clause. But the question is, it's difficult, it's doable. How do you get to the U.S. Supreme Court? And they're going to have to think about that because the way I would do it is I would obviously point out that this was what I will call the reverse federalism, where a state court assumed authority over federal issues, is impacting a federal election, a presidential election, the choice of the most powerful official in the United States, a choice of one of the three branches of the federal government. The question is whether you leave that to states and to their courts and to a DA. Now, the court's instructions allowed the jury to convict Donald Trump for concealing a non-crime. The court allowed the jury to convict on any one of three possible predicate crimes without unanimity. So the jury could have convicted the predicate crime of a Federal Campaign Act violation, that is the payment of monies to Stormy Daniels. This alleged crime was committed, if at all, prior to the entry of the allegedly false business records. Bragg stated in his April 4, 2023 press conference, announcing an indictment, a total of 34 false entries were made in New York business records to conceal the initial covert $130,000 payment. So while the New York criminal statute requires that the state must prove the intent to commit another crime or to aid or conceal the commission thereof, the alleged federal election crime was already committed. So I'm not saying it was a crime, but under their theory. So the business record entry could not have been to commit a federal offense or to aid the commission of a crime. It could have only been to conceal that crime in and of itself, if you follow the logic. But the jury was told that the state need not prove that the other crime was in fact committed. So the jury was empowered to convict Trump of intending to conceal an act that was not a crime. Trump wanted to keep quiet something that he had every right to keep quiet. And the list of horribles goes on and on and on. Yes, the issue isn't whether there is reversible error here. Many of us think there is. I have no idea what these judges in the state lineup will do. But the question is even bigger. Because now we have a DA and an acting state judge who have impacted a federal election, a federal campaign, to the detriment of the voters. By placing a scarlet letter on President Trump, which was the intention all along. Do you leave that to the state court process to decide? Do you hope that you'll get a good appellate decision? Or do you try and take it out of that jurisdiction that shouldn't have it in the first place? And how do you do it?